Welcome back to another study. This day, September 5th, our Father is unsealing his hidden truth, hidden from the enemy, but available to those who seek his ways, his Sabbath. So a few days ago, Father led me to see more into Revelation 9:1. We had a great deal of understanding on these verses that they're opposite of what Christianity portrays. They're not negative, they are positive. And it's just that these are all hidden in symbolic language. So reading from Revelation 9:1, we have the traditional translation, and the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him, we'll point out who the him is, was given the key of the bottomless pit. This is the traditional interpretation of these words, Greek words, which probably were originally in Hebrew. So we're going to dig into three of these Greek words here. The word translated as key, bottomless, and pit. So starting out with the Greek word translated as key, I want to point out a few things. First, just in the this word, Strong's definition, it can be figuratively, as in a key to knowledge of something, a key that unlocks something that is coded, either symbolically or in other means. The understanding is not readily understood from the surface level, and a key of some sort is needed to get what the underlying message is. So looking at a couple verses elsewhere in the New Testament that have this Greek word translated as key or keys, Matthew 16:19, I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom, that which decodes the kingdom, the understanding of the kingdom of heaven. And I like Luke 11:52, which is from the corrupt person who was a follower of Paul. But here we have, woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge. This is where I'm going with this, the key of knowledge. You enter not in yourselves, and them that were entering in you hinder. And in Matthew, this verse is talking about they don't let them enter into heaven. And full well, they know the way to enter into the kingdom of heaven, and they keep others from entering in. So in Revelation 3:7, this is brought up. These things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, that opens up understanding. And if you don't have it, it shuts the understanding. So now looking at the word that they translate as bottomless, abysso, where we get the abyss from, we see this is actually coming from two words brought together. This first part is, you will see this G1 is referring to the Hebrew alpha, as in the Alpha and the Omega. Note this is of Hebrew origin, so this is bringing across something to do with the Alpha, the first, like in the first of the week, one of the two witnesses. And we see that as only in this book of Revelation that we have this word Alpha in the Greek. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I contend that it's not one person, it's referring to two, the two witnesses, the Alpha and the Omega. They witness on either side of Father's Sabbath, Father resting in the Sabbath, and then these two men who are created as witnesses on the sixth day, and then on the first day of the next week. So you see in Revelation 1:1, the Alpha and we are the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. Revelation 26, and this messenger said unto me, it is done. We are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of the work week. I will give unto you he that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life, and that is the Sabbath. So already we're seeing that this translation of bottomless, something else is going on here. It's referring to the Alpha, part of the two parts of the Alpha and Omega. So what do we find here when we look at the second word? It is derived from this Greek word, the Strong's Greek 899. Strong's 1037, which is a variation of the Greek 899, which is where I'm going. And they just see it as the deep, and it's translated only one time. But as we look at the Strong's Greek 899, we see that it is a metaphor. It is of the deep things of Father. So we have the Alpha, as in the Alpha and Omega, one of the two witnesses, and the deep things of Father, the deep knowledge of Father and his ways. So now moving on to the third word that they translate as pit, we see that it's only used 7 times. And 5 times it's translated as pit, twice as well. And we'll look at these verses. But isn't it interesting that it is a well, and a well has the water which gives life, which we already seen in the first part, the deep things of Father. So notice here in John 4:11, the woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. They didn't use pit, they used well. And the wells that they had are very much similar to the wells that are in Ireland. They're not necessarily deep holes that you fall in and you could die from falling into it. They are more gradual decline into where a spring may be that comes up with water. And then in the very next verse, art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself and his children and his cattle? So we see these 2 times. So if we take this idea that it is a well and not a pit, and we go back into Luke 14:5 and bring this, instead of pit, well, and answer them, saying, Which of you, having an ass or an ox fallen into a well, and will not straightway pull him out on the Sabbath day? This still retains the surface meaning of this verse. But it now brings a secondary understanding that this is a parable, and you need to see it. The well are the deep things of Father and his Sabbath. And he is speaking to the Pharisees, which prevent people from entering in. And he says, when a person goes into the well in the depth of Father's way, what one of them, of the Pharisees, will not straightway go in and pull him out in regards to the Sabbath day? Because no one can come to know that Saturday is not the Sabbath, that it is Wednesday. So this verse takes on a totally different meaning when pit is changed to well. We see a secondary understanding of this verse, that the Pharisees would take people away, pull them out of the Sabbath of being in covenant with Father. So when we go to the other 2 verses in Revelation 9:1 and 2 are the verses we're looking at right now. And if we change this now to well, so putting this all together, Revelation 9:1, we can now translate, and the 5th angel or messenger sounded, and I saw a star, which would be a day, fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him, who's the him? The angel was given, the messenger was given the key, that which cracks the code, that which unseals the scripture, and specifically Daniel's sealed books and Revelation, which is sealed with Father's Sabbath. So the key is the Sabbath. And to him was given the true Sabbath, which opens the deep things of Father that were given to us through the two witnesses, and in this case, the Alpha, the one who comes, who represents the first day of the week. The first day and the sixth day witness to the Sabbath in between them. Tuesday and Thursday represent witness to Wednesday in between them. So this knowledge of Father is released in the well, and the well is figuratively the scriptures that are given to us through the prophets. This would be the ones that are unadulterated, unaltered, or Father has opened up the sealed meaning that has been hidden, that kept the scribes from altering things. So here we now see that this verse is all positive, and it is the messenger releasing the truth of Father's his ways, his deep ways from his well, his word, which we have in the original uncorrupted writings and in these sealed books. Now, what is highly interesting is today is the fifth trumpet, or the fifth holy day of the year, the fifth high Sabbath. September 5th is the first day of ingathering and is a high Sabbath. And today, Father has pointed out to me that this understanding is about the fifth holy day, the fifth message, the message this fifth holy day brings about, this high holy day, high Sabbath. That is today that he is doing this, bringing this understanding. That's just remarkable. And then I happened to come across the video today that someone else did, and they're pointing out what they saw in the movie Puss in Boots, these couple scenes, which just as soon as I saw it, it spoke to me, and that Father's confirming these things even more. So here it is that in this movie, they have a key with the number 7 on it. And that is what the key is. The key is his Sabbath. He has sealed things. The Sabbath, it says throughout the Old and New Testament, it says the Sabbath is the seal of God. That which is sealed in the forehead and the arm, to identify that we are his and that he is ours. He is with us, that we are in covenant with him. It is through the keeping of his Sabbath. And this then leads into, later in this movie, the second scene, which speaks just as much, is that, of course, the number 7 on the key was pointing to door number 7, or the seventh day, opening up what the true seventh day is for us to see, and it is Wednesday. And so this whole chapter 9, the smoke coming out, is the smoke screen that the Pharisees have put into Scripture, becomes released, and we see it for what it is. It's the smoke screen that they've put in to keep us from seeing the truth. Things become clear to us, and then the locusts that come out are those who are seeking Father's truth, because the locust will only eat the green things, the things that give life. We aren't looking for the things that lead to death. We're looking for Father's truth. And these spiritual locusts that we are, we leave behind the food that we've ate because it's knowledge, and others can follow in our footsteps and also eat of that same thing. But it's pointing to a number of people coming to this knowledge and understanding at this time, so that it's be seen as a plague of locusts that are coming. Those who are seeking the truth and finding it and devouring Father's truth. So this whole book of Genesis, book of Revelation, chapter 9, is dealing with very positive things, and it's not the doom and gloom that Christianity shows. We'll see what the rest of these days for this week of ingathering bring, especially when we come to next Sabbath, the 8th day. It's very exciting times for me. Blessings to you all. Realized at the end of this that I had left out a few things I wanted to bring to your attention. One is going to the 7 churches. The 4th church is representative of Wednesday, so it's very interesting that in Revelation 2:24, speaking to the church of Thyatira, it says, "But unto you I say, unto the rest in Thyatira. There's a play on words here. So it is speaking about the rest of those in this church keep their rest day, the Sabbath. This is pointing to Wednesday as the true Sabbath. And as many as have not this doctrine, the doctrine of Jezebel, the doctrine of keeping the false Sabbath, the 3 days of darkness, and which have not known the depths, the knowledge, the ways of Satan, which are corruption of Father's ways, as they speak, I will put upon you no other burden. So it is the knowledge of the Sabbath that brings Father's truth that is being said here in Revelation 2:24 about this fourth church. So the churches are in the order of the false week, and the fourth church is the fourth day on the false week, which is the seventh day in the true weeks, Father's true Sabbath. And so it's interesting, this verse came up in regards to Revelation 9:1 and the depths being the knowledge. Second thing is when we go into the last two verses in Revelation 9, speaking of the fifth messenger, the fifth trumpet, Revelation 9:11, and they had a king. This word is probably mistranslated and it's more likely a judge in terms of what Father had intended, one who could guide people in which way to go, which is the messenger of the Alpha knowledge of Father's ways, of his well of truth, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon. And if you break down this word, it is very similar to abyss. It's Father's judge. So it's talking about this judge who is Father's judge who has come. This is the Alpha, a part of the Alpha and Omega, the two witnesses. But in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon, similar meaning, Father's judge. So then in verse 9:12, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. It's interesting because this is the fifth feast day of Father, that there naturally fall two remaining feast days. Feast of Trumpets on October 10th, and then finally Atonement, which is the true last day. Judaism and the scribes have messed up, switched around where the days fall, but December 26th being the last day of the year, Atonement, ending what this appears to be the Jubilee year. So again, quite amazing what Father's doing. Blessings.